We're just after Thanksgiving. It's the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. And if you were on Instagram earlier, you might have noticed I put a post up about the three-banded armadillo being the only armadillo species that can close up completely into a ball. And also with that, then the theme song, Staying Inside. Because this time of year, everyone's out and about shopping and doing all the craziness that goes with it. I call it craziness. I'm not a fan of that. In fact, on Thanksgiving, I was outside in a creek nearby here, exploring, having fun. And even on Friday, Black Friday, the day after that, Thanksgiving, when everyone's all shopping and hitting the malls and all this stuff, I also spent a couple hours down in a canyon with a creek and enjoying myself out there and just being outside. And that brings us to why this live is happening today. I don't know, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, I came across an account here on Instagram, Talk Nerdy to Me California. And she is outside all the time, not only enjoying and exploring outdoors, but also offering up awesome nuggets of education in her video about things from rock structures to plants to trees to lichen, slime mold, and everything else. And her enthusiasm and love for the outdoors was contagious. And for me, someone who just naturally already likes that, I couldn't not watch her content. So I invited her to come on here, and she'll join us shortly to talk about how she got into doing this level of education for the naturalist and being outside. And she's from Northern California, so the outdoor areas where she's exploring and what she's doing is a bit different than what I have here in Southern California. I'm in the San Diego area, and she's in Northern California. But that's one of the more awesome things I find about the state of California is that we have all these amazing ecosystems within the state. And yes, it's a very large state, but even going from the coast inland, here in San Diego County, you find so many different ecosystems to explore and be outside and be a part of. So with that, I wanted to have a discussion with her about her experiences and why she does it. I know for me, that it's important to be outside because I feel a sense of being able to step away from all the hustle and bustle of life and reconnecting with sort of that sense of being in touch with myself because you're in touch with nature. And it's one of those things where for me, I have found over the years, it's been very I'll skip here in the volume. It'll pop in and out, but she'll join us in a second. And I think it's important we have that conversation around why it's important to be outside and why it's important to save our local ecosystems and that sort of thing. Hey, there she is. Can you hear
Hello,
me?
hello. I can hear
Hi.
you. Can you hear
Excellent.
me?
Yes, absolutely. Excellent. Well, I was just saying before you popped on about why I like to be outdoors all the time and why it's important to me and how your content came across my feed on Instagram several weeks ago. And I was just so enamored with the energy and excitement you have for educating and how diverse it is in the sense that you'll talk about rock formations, you'll talk about slime mold, you'll talk about why the leaves change, or next season this dry grassy area will become this amazing ecosystem bustling with life. So, but I guess before we get in, everyone who's following me, introduce yourself. What's your name and what is exactly your title that you do?
Yeah, so my name is Gabrielle. On social media, my handle is Talk Nerdy to Me, California. And I am a nature educator and I specifically focus on California ecology. That I live in California, and that's my passion and really kind of what led me into my self-appointed nature nerd status. Uh, and this is it's not what I do full time. It's just a hobby, a pet project, a passion of mine, and as you alluded to, a outlet for all of the nerdy nature things that are bouncing around in my brain 24/7.
So, okay, so with that then, and this is one thing I always try to tell kids when I work with kids and even young adults, it's like you said, I want to do something for conservation, I would do something for nature, but I'm not a scientist. You just kind of alluded to the fact that this is more of a hobby for you than your actual daily job necessarily. So I love that because your content is so powerful, I think, in the way you present it and the information you have. And it's a great opportunity, I think, for people to look at what you're doing and go, okay, this isn't my profession necessarily. It doesn't mean that I can't follow my passion and do something, whether it's the caliber in which you do it here on Instagram and other, social media in general, and the videos you put together, or doing nature walks or volunteering for trash cleanup or whatever. How did you get like? I mean, if you don't want to say it, it's fine. But what is your day job normally versus how did you find yourself now in this position of Talk Nerdy to Me, California?
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. And it's uh my kind of journey here has been a
Yeah.
meandering one, which I think is a really helpful thing for other people to also hear because, I can tell you personally, like you can find your passion later in life and totally lean into that and have it still fit, your 9 to 5. So yeah,
Right.
so I work in agriculture, so I work for a big organic rice farm. So I mean, to some extent, and actually I've found through a lot of this that there is so much overlap. I mean, obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like, and opportunities to incorporate more of kind of what I've learned into the agricultural industry, which is fantastic. But, yeah, just to back up a little bit, I guess, I actually like my first degree is in accounting.
Okay.
So I studied accounting and I studied finance and I kind of found later in life, I found this passion and I ended up going back to school and really kind of diving into like ecology and natural resources and everything. And that's really what led me here.
Hmm.
But, and I found this through the California Naturalist program. Have you heard of that?
No, I have not. Do tell.
Okay. Yes, I'm a total evangelist for this. So yeah, I was working, a 9 to 5 in finance and accounting and I had grown up in like the Santa Cruz Mountains. I grew
Oh,
up
okay.
spending a lot of time out in the woods. So I always say I was a little feral child that was climbing trees and swimming in the
Relatable.
river.
Relatable. Yeah.
Um, and later I moved to a community. I moved to like a suburban community, super
Hmm.
suburban, surrounded by agriculture. And then there wasn't a lot of, I'd have to drive, over an hour to get to the nearest hiking trails. And I, really felt in that place kind of just disconnected from the natural world and disconnected from my roots. So I ended up finding, I don't even know how it came about, but about this California Naturalist program. And this is a program that's put on by the UC, I think it's the UC Extension or UC Agricultural Natural Resources. And it's a program that's available all across California through different organizations. So there could be a conservation focused organization that says that they're going to host this program. So that's nice.
Hmm.
You can find it from Southern California all the way up to the North Coast. And it's geared towards working adults. It's always in the evenings and it's,
Hmm.
you don't need any background knowledge. And it's a 40-hour program that is all focused on California ecology and really kind of starting from the basics and just, I don't know, helping you recognize patterns that you see kind of out in nature or in your everyday life and seeing how kind of different, how our landscapes and our climate and kind of these different unique aspects of California fit together to
Hmm.
give us such incredible diversity, so many different
Yeah.
unique plants and animals and all of these things. And I took this class just as a fun thing. And I was like, oh my, this is my passion. I got so excited. I'm like,
Nice.
it just made me like look at the world around me in a different way. And I'm like, but this plant you always see this plant with this plant and then it interacts with these animals and then it's only found in this soil and like,
Right.
and I just was like, how did I not know? Like, how did
Yeah.
I, I've lived in this state my whole life and I didn't recognize these things that were happening around me. And from that, I started taking classes at the local community college, which is a little hard going back to school as an adult. I was kind of
Yes, it is.
self-conscious.
I've been there, done
And then
that. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I love this. I'm going to do it anyway. I will get over that. So took natural history classes from the local community college. And then at a certain point, decided I went back and I got my bachelor's in natural resources. again, while like working full time and just, found a fabulous online program, and really was able to like lean into those things that I was just so excited about. And then through that, friends are always like, "Oh, you love this stuff so much. You should start a blog or do a YouTube or something."
Right.
And they kind of talked to me. I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll do kind of this social media thing." And it has been just such a such a joy to
Hmm.
have an opportunity to be excited. I mean, I always am excited about all this nerdy nature stuff, but to like share it with other people and
Right.
help other people kind of build those connections and see, the world around them a little bit differently. Yeah, it's been a really fun journey, and I've also it's helped me connect with just so many other people that are also excited about some of the other kind of nerdy nature things that I get so passionate about.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that because I think sometimes I mean, growing up anyhow, it seemed like the term nerd was like not something good. But I love it when we get so excited about something, we can say, I'm nerding out about this, and we can celebrate that. And so I love your sort of attitude around that. And I will say too, like when I first came across your content, absolutely your excitement for it, your passion for it comes across so well. It's just
No.
it's but that's just it though, right? It's like when we are connecting with something at that level
Yeah.
and we're speaking
Yeah.
from the heart. It is not any effort to come across as engaging and exciting because we actually are, and it shows. And I love that about that.
No.
But I do want to ask you too, in your journey, in your process, and now that you're doing more online and you're going out and doing stuff with people, not just online. For you, when you see people in the early stage of curiosity and you're with them or showing them or telling them, why is it you think people in general start to gravitate, especially now in our modern times where, I mean, we want to see a tree, we can just Google it. We want to see a bird, we can just, do a search for it. Why do you think being outside and why are we seeing more people starting to gravitate towards being curious about their own natural areas around them? What's been your experience with that?
Oh, and that is one of my favorite kind of things about all of this is it's given me an opportunity. So I lead guided naturalist hikes. I will lead another favorite of mine is to like take people tide pooling, to like take
Hmm.
people out to these places that maybe they've never experienced before. And the joy that I get from taking, from seeing somebody else experience this new thing with the world in person, interacting in these environments, and especially kind of that light bulb moment when they start
Yes.
to make those connections or when they get curious and want to know more and look it up in a field guide and like get some of their questions answered or like start seeing how the pieces fit together is so satisfying for me to like that's why I like being a nature educator is because I get to help people like have that moment and but it doesn't it's not the same trying to even watching like some of the videos and stuff online like oh that's great you can it opens the door but like
Sure.
having that actual in-person connection and the other thing is you just can't, something that I really enjoy about being out in nature is making those observations.
Hmm.
And it's something that you just can't do unless you're there. You might
Right.
not see that bird fly through. I recently did a conifer survey project where we're out in the Sierra Nevada and we're trying to see how, conifers, these pine trees are moving further up slope into these really kind of high alpine environments. And the thought is that it's from a bird, that there are birds that are actually taking the pine seeds, taking the pine
Mm-hmm.
nuts, and caching them at higher elevation. And that's something that, somebody was like, oh, can't we just use satellite imagery to see where these trees are? And I'm like, well, great. So, where the tree is there, but how are you ever going to like make that connection on how it got there? You kind of got to be there in person and to like, and again, just to see that interaction and these things happening in person. it resonates so much more deeply,
Yeah.
and it also just helps you kind of fit the pieces together in a different way.
Well, and I completely agree in the sense that I think we have the technology to gather data, whether it's satellite imagery or whatever it might be, or the simplicity. I will say, technology is great in the sense that it allowed us to connect, right? It allows people to connect and find like-minded people, but it's that those moments outside that are the most impactful. It's those observations, like you said, whether it is for scientific research or just an observation for your own experience.
Yeah,
I was just saying earlier before you popped on that I spent a good chunk of Thanksgiving down at one of the local canyons here that I love to be in. That's got a creek going through it that recently had surged because of rain that we had. And then I was down there again on Friday because I just love it. And it's those moments both days down in the same location, different experiences. One
yeah,
time I had several dragonflies in the area and just got to observe how they were interacting with the environment. Another time, a different day, a hawk flying right by me. And I've worked with hawks as a zookeeper, but there's something really incredible about being in that natural space and having nature happening right in front of you that just can't be replicated through data or screens or anything else. And I think
yeah,
it's that, but the value of the screen, the value of what you do on social media is, I think it allows someone who is scrolling to go, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. Whether they join you or go outside in their own space or find something similar, in their own area, wherever they may be, it's that excitement that is contagious and allows people to start exploring that and getting curious about that outdoor
yeah.
space.
Right.
You did bring up the importance of being outside for scientific study as well. In your experience thus far, whether when you were first starting up more on the student side and following your curiosity, or now as someone who's helping leading groups and giving these, wonderful talks, for you, why, in your opinion or your experience, is it important for us to maintain knowledge of what's going on in our ecosystems around us?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just so crucial for us to, again, kind of be able to make those connections, and also to understand really what we have, what is out there. I've done a lot of research on, I've helped a lot on, like rare plant surveys and different biological. Oh, I did one this summer that was all about documenting what insect species are found all across California, and kind of
Hmm.
the biodiversity of insects, and a huge part of it is just, we still don't even know exactly, all of the different species that are here. We know a lot of them, but scientists are still discovering those, and just getting an understanding of all of that, I think, is really important. And especially, unfortunately, kind of in the face of climate change, and in the
Yeah.
face of also of really dramatically changing landscapes. So, when we're doing more development, and we're kind of a lot of these natural spaces are being, degraded or being impacted, or we're building, but more housing, or more, other important things, but kind of having an understanding of how, what those impacts will be, what is being impacted, what's actually out there, and in the face of climate change, just getting an understanding of how all of these species kind of might change and might be impacted on that over
Mhm.
time, I think is really crucial.
Yeah, and that actually makes me think of, I remember, gosh, this was many, many years ago. There was work being done studying polar bears and what the oil drilling vibrations and sounds, how far that traveled, and what were the decibels or what was the frequency that the mother polar bears could hear, because the concern that was being observed is that the females weren't denning up properly because these oil
Huh.
derricks were moving into the space. And so there were studies done on what actually polar bears could hear because they couldn't justify the new boundaries or rules about where they could and could not drill if they didn't really have the data to show what the bears could hear. So what you're saying to me now just made me think of that, because it's like, yeah, we need to study the insects and the birds, and what are the water patterns when it rains, and where are the migration patterns of certain animals, or what do they need for reproduction and breeding, and that can help with that data then say, no, actually this space needs to be preserved, or if you just move it, 2 miles that way, you won't impact
Mhm.
anything, versus where you want to do it now, it's going to be massively impactful. So yeah, that's a great point. I love that. Going into the idea of like, why do we need to know this stuff? Why should we be out there studying this stuff on a scientific level and getting the data? not just for me personally, like I was mentioning, like going out there and it just feels good to experience nature, and I do firmly believe that humans, we're somewhat detached sometimes in our modern lives from nature. And so it's important to remind people, oh, get out there and go for a walk, whether it's a park or whatever. I would love to ask you, from your opinion, because your path is kind of cool in the sense that you're saying, look, I was an accountant, I was doing this, I was doing that, but then I got bit by the bug of curiosity for nature, literally or figuratively. For someone who might be watching or catch this later on, what would you say would be the first best step to maybe start looking into doing more? Because, like you said, what you're doing now, your creative stuff, that's more of a side hobby, but it's you're doing so well with it. It's like, well, it's not your job, okay. But what would you suggest to somebody who's like, I want to look into that more? What would be your recommendation, whether it's here in California or wherever?
Yeah, so I say like the first thing I tell people is to kind of have a curiosity mindset. And that's
Mm,
something that you've touched on here too. Like I think it is so we're busy. We're like in our day to day, you gotta, go to work, pay the bills, drop your kids off, do kind of all of that. And we get almost just kind of on an autopilot. And trying to adjust your mind so that you have this curiosity mindset. So you're noticing more. So like looking for patterns that you're seeing out in nature. And
mm,
this, like I say out in nature, like this can be in your own neighborhood. This can be at your neighborhood park. It doesn't have to be like out in the back country or at a national
right.
park
Oh,
or something. This
absolutely.
is
Yeah.
something you can totally do in your own area. So just being kind of curious, trying, kind of noticing things more, paying a little bit more attention, and then really, like doing some deep dives. That's always when I'm out in nature, I always say, oh, put it on the Google list. I
Yeah.
might, I
Yeah.
might not want to,
Absolutely.
I'm like, oh, I have a question. I don't want to pull up my phone and like, kind of search it up right now, or maybe I don't even have service. So I'll go put this on the Google list for later. Like I want to learn more about that. And then I'll get back home later and, kind of do some more research. Be like, what was that cool insect I saw? Or like, why do we always see these species kind of, together in the same place? And just adjusting your mind on that small set can be huge. The other thing that I've done where I've had just such good experiences is I've just looked for like little kind of one-off presentations or workshops, or here they do uh, science pub get together where you can like go see a presentation on astrophysics or something and have a beer at the same time, or like just trying to find little workshops or kind of get-togethers or meetings or anything. And that's how kind of I've gone down so many rabbit holes. So many of these nerdy rabbit holes has really been, I'll be like, okay, I don't know much about, moss or anything, but maybe I'll took like a bryophytes, moss and liverworts, like workshop, and then proceeded to torment all of my family and friends with my fun
Right.
moss facts, for the next however many weeks. But like, and I think for a lot of people, like, maybe you don't know what your passion is yet. Like maybe you haven't found that, but by like kind of trying all of these different things and like just go check out one of these workshops, or also like check your community college. I have done so many weekend field courses.
Oh,
So
cool.
you like not during the week, you don't have to take off time out of work, but like these weekend like geology field courses and
Hmm.
biology field courses that like you're just going out with somebody that knows everything about this topic and spend time like actually outside like exploring these things. And again, like maybe you'll go on one of them and be like, yeah, no, that wasn't quite my thing, but like just try it out and like keep an
Right.
open mind. That's been really really fun for me and something that I try to encourage everyone. And then also just that kind of that learning mindset of like, oh, if you have a question, like take some time, dig into it, kind of follow. I always feel like I call it the never ending kind of curiosity loop where I have a question and I was like, oh, okay, I'll research it. I get some answers, but that brings up more
Leaves more
questions and then some
questions.
more. And they're like, and then years later, I'm standing there looking at this mossy rock like it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. We're like, oh, but I understand how all these pieces fit together and
Right.
interact. Like, it can just be, yeah, a really fun, and I think also just like using your mind and kind of, uh, really trying to learn more and having that beginner's mindset, that learning mindset, and that
Yeah.
curiosity just can help you find your passion, and also just like life's more interesting. I would say, come to the nerdy side.
Exactly right.
Life's more interesting over here.
It is, and it got me thinking too. I know here in San Diego we have these so much diversity in the county because of the way we're located in the mountains and the beach and everything.
Oh yeah.
So I know San Diego County Parks and Rec. They don't have a budget for a lot of advertising, but if you go to their website, there's often things like you mentioned, weekend events, tours, guided things, presentations that are super fascinating about our local ecology and everything. And so I would encourage people to do the same. Like, just you have to go to the website because they're not gonna promote it.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see it, as an ad on YouTube or anything like popping up on Instagram. You need to go look for it a little bit, but it's probably there. There are people doing the work. And so going out there also on that level too, you check your county and city parks. And going back to even what
Hmm.
you said, you don't have to go out in the wilderness. Reminded me of a time I was taking my daughter to school. We do the same route, all the time. And we noticed the tree changing as the season changed. But it was curious. There was one point sort of higher up on one side of the tree that was changing faster in colors. And we're like, well, I wonder why that is. And we figured out that because where it was located amongst the other trees, that's where the sun was hitting it the most. The other leaves weren't getting sun yet. So it was triggering the process as the season
Oh
changed.
wow.
And we watched it every day because we drive by every day. So it was like daily observations of how this tree was changing, but we didn't know why it was doing it that way. And then we got curious about it. We Googled it. And I will say this for people who are saying Google it, make sure you check multiple sources though. Don't just check the AI
The
blurb they give you
AI
up top
summary,
because
yeah.
sometimes that just goes with what's most popular, not most accurate. So do a little digging other than just a quick search. But either way, no, it's a great point that you brought up that you don't have to make a plan to go out to Yellowstone. You
Yeah.
can literally walk your own neighborhood and observe how the plants are changing, whether they're native plants or not, and just kind of get in touch that way with understanding how the seasons are changing and what that does and for the plants, what that does for the insects, the birds, mammals, everybody. So I really appreciate your time, but I don't want to wrap it up too quickly yet. I do want to ask you this: of all your curiosity and everything you have done thus far, and maybe there's not just one, but is there one moment or one opportunity or one thing that occurred that will always stick with you because of this curious path you've been taking?
That's a good question. I think just overall, I feel like just being able to see my journey from where I started, of
Hmm.
just being like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll kind of take this take this one class, and just seeing how it's able, like, branched out in so many different ways, like that. It just, like, that aspect of it, and it reminds me of a lot of things actually in ecology and nature, and kind of this branching where you can, just see like where things come together and interact and change in a different way, and it just all of that like feeds out into the universe, and you see all of these patterns everywhere, and it's something that just, really helped me to look at the world in this different way, and to like look around at all of these ecological interactions that are happening around us all the time, and it just like blows my mind every day. Like every day I'm like, how are we just like walking around in this world and not like, can we like stop and like take a
Right.
moment, like talk about the like diversity of cactuses or conifers, or all of those things, and like that all of that like just comes back to me, like taking this one individual class, like that's something that I really cherish, and that I really try to like. That's why I do kind of the content that I do, is to like
Yeah.
help somebody find that little place where they're going to start, and that just kind of like puts them out onto this pathway to where they will see the universe and the world around them differently, and like have that experience of like having their mind blown
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, and while you're talking, it was like the image of a seed just came into my mind. Like that first class was that seed for you, and you're talking about how it all spreads out. It's like I'm like
Yeah.
visualizing this oak tree growing, and not only just the tree itself, but then all the environment that it creates.
No, and
So
every all the different
your
things it
first class,
supports.
yeah, your first class was that seed, and now all your curiosity is like creating so much more. So I love that. That's so cool. So
That's
cool.
great. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to share with everybody that we haven't touched on yet? I think we've covered a lot, but I don't want to
We've
like cut
covered
it
a
off and
lot.
you're like, no, I wanted to say something still.
Oh, no, no, nothing. Just again, I just really want to encourage people to be curious and embrace their inner nature nerd. Like, I know it's in there, and I know that that is something that has just the potential to bring people so much kind of joy and enhance their interaction and their connection with the natural world kind of around them, and also just to other people too.
Yeah,
So I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to you on here, and to hopefully encourage more people to
absolutely. Yeah.
really lean into that. I think I feel like the world would be um, a better place if more people had the opportunity to do that, but also kind of had that encouragement. And but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we're getting there. There's a lot of people out there. I've seen a lot on social media and other places that are really kind of helping to evangelize a deeper connection with
Yeah.
nature, and I think it'll do us good.
Well, it's one thing I've always said to students when I was instructing is that you've got to meet your audience where they are, and that's why I appreciate what you're doing too here on Instagram, and because people are on their phones, so let's meet them where they are with this content, get them excited, and get them outdoors,
Yep.
and get them to a place where they can't get a signal on their phone,
Yeah,
right?
perfect. That's the goal.
Exactly, exactly. So with that too, before we wrap up, where else are you only here on Instagram? Or are you doing YouTube too, or where can people
I,
find your content?
Yep. So, primary is Instagram, but I'm also on TikTok, and then I just started YouTube. I get right now kind of just shorts, but I am hoping to do some longer form content and some more deep, deep dives, because there's a lot of these topics that I'm like, oh, I could really nerd out on that if I
Yeah,
had
you
just
can
a
do
little more
long form
time. So,
easy. Yeah.
yeah. So, yep, yep.
So
Hoping to
on
branch out on there too. But
on
all of them.
YouTube, what's the handle?
Oh, it's Talk Nerdy to Me California on all three, on all
Perfect.
platforms.
Perfect.
Yep,
Excellent.
yep,
Easy
easy
peasy. So if
peasy.
they're watching it here, they can easily just go find you elsewhere then.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for joining me and doing this. Once
No,
this
it's
is
just
all
a
done and
joy.
wrapped up, I'll repost it and share it so we can make sure it lives forever, at least as long as Instagram lives, and people can find you and get excited and nerdy about all things nature in California.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a great to meet you virtually. Have
Yes,
a
exactly.
good
Maybe
afternoon.
someday in real life since we're both in California.
Yep, yep, yep. You bet.
All
Thank
right.
you. All right.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Well, I just want to reiterate, if you find yourself, obviously, if you're following me here on Instagram, or if you're watching this and you follow her at the Talk Nerdy to Me California account, you're probably already hooked on nature and animals. But that being said, I know a lot of people do ask about getting into it more. And that's why I was asking her how she got into it as well. I want you to realize that there sometimes are visual gatekeeping. It seems like it's not something you can do, but sometimes it's as simple as just being curious, taking a class, asking a person a question, making an observation of your own, whether it's in a city park or down in nature or wherever, at the beach, a lake. This time of year too, as we get into winter, I know a lot of people in the northern part of the United States or northern hemisphere in general, it's like, well, it's winter, there's not much happening. You would be amazed at how much is happening in the winter environment around you. Yes, plants go dormant, animals animals tend to hide and cache food, whatever. But there are animals that are still active and plants that still thrive in colder climates. Things change, and now is the time to make those observations so you can see how they change as we get deeper into winter, and then how they change as we come out of winter as well. So thank you all for joining us. I know there's been a handful of people here following us on the live, and I know there'll be a lot more watching later. I want to thank you all for being a part of all of this, getting excited about nature. And then, of course, you have the ability too to get other people excited about nature. Share this content with them. Share everyone's content that's doing nature stuff, that is respecting nature, respecting wildlife, sharing information and getting excited about it, because we do need to maintain that connection to our natural world. All right. Have a good one, everybody.